much pressure. Good evening. I call to order the Pinellas County School Board meeting Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. This evening we'll begin with an invocation from Pastor Lucas Hillman from Grace Christian Fellowship in Largo, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Caprice Edmond and the National Anthem. Would you please stand and remain standing until the completion of the National Anthem? Pastor, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Hendrick and Chairwoman Hine and board and council members and staff. Thank you for having us. Let us bow in prayer as we start our time. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks and praise for the gift of this day. May we seek to honor you with all that lies ahead. And although there is much to do, much to accomplish and plan for, we ask that you would achieve your ends through this time. Ahead are many agendas, and we acknowledge that though our greatest duty is to love you and others as ourselves, we acknowledge we can't fulfill any of these requirements without your divine grace found in Jesus Christ. And this evening, O Lord, we grant to us what you require. We pray for the students within Pinellas County that each one has been created by you with dignity and worth. Lord, that you would protect them, provide for them, and allow them to grow into maturity and into wisdom. And as they prepare for this upcoming year, administer your peace to both them and their loved ones. Be with the parents, grandparents, family members, and friends who will care and do what they are able to in order to support and assist their students' journey. Grant each student a network of people who know and love them. Lord, I pray on behalf of the teachers, staff, volunteers, and their families. Grant them refreshment, Lord, that they would be able to continue to invest into the lives around them. Give attention to their needs. Provide for them according to your abundance. May you work to put into their hands prospering work, and Lord, that your love would go forth through them. Lord, you have told us to pray for those with the responsibility to lead, influence, and shape our communities, cities, and people. Lord, we pray that those who are entrusted to lead would do so with integrity, clarity, and courage. For those of us who called to the burden of leadership, Lord, I pray that they would honor you in our neighborhood and in our decisions. We give thanks that you have appointed each of these people to lead, to teach, and care for our community. Grant them wisdom, discernment, and unity, that our schools, our faculties, teams, and families would flourish according to the wisdom you have given. In all things, all decisions and speeches, action, may your goodness and mercy go before us, follow behind us, and indeed surround us at all times. It is indeed in your most lovely and holy and precious name we pray these things. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed?
Please be seated. The next item on our agenda, 1.5, is a video we're going to share with you about the Pinellas Technical College graduation. Let's take a look.
Graduation means to me a sense of accomplishment and success in my career. Hi, I'm Abigail Watson. I'm the first female automotive master technician to graduate from Pinellas Technical College, class of 2025. Starting off, it was a little intimidating just because it's a bunch of guys and I was the only girl in the classroom. And I didn't know much, but the teachers are really inviting. They taught me everything I know, really. I work for Pinellas County Schools. I just started in April and I'm working on school buses. Pinellas Technical College has prepared me for my job because they've given me the tools to be able to even attempt to do something like this.
Hi, my name is Godfred Ampabin. I am a graduate of the 2025 PTC graduation from the Network Support Service Program. I finally got to do something I've dreamt of since I was a teenager. A few months to completing my program, I got a job. The program, I would 100% encourage anyone who wants to pursue networking to look no other place but Pinellas Technical College. Graduating today gives me the opportunity to reflect when I started this journey, how far I've come, the accomplishments, makes me feel very proud of myself.
My name is Ashley Chance, and I am the graduating class of 2025 from Pinellas Technical College with a degree in web development. I went to Pinellas Park and I started dual enrollment as a senior. I just got done winning at Skills USA National Championship. We won the award in web development. I really didn't know that it was possible, but it was so life-changing.
Our National Skills USA Gold Medalist winner, Ashley Chance.
Pinellas Technical College made my dreams come true by making it super easy to build my resume, help me find jobs by connecting to people and networking. I love PTC so much. It's like a big family to me.
I now present to you the Pinellas Technical College graduate of 2025.
That was really wonderful. Our board vice chair was there that evening, Ms. Edmond.
Thank you. It was absolutely wonderful to attend the graduation. Both campuses had graduations, graduates attending, representing over 40 programs, and you've heard it right there in the video. At PTC, opportunity starts here. So learn more about Pinellas Technical College and what workforce development opportunities await by visiting their website. Congratulations, graduates.
Thank you, Ms. Edmond. I do want to mention introduction of professional and community organization representatives. Isabel Mascarenas, our Public Information Officer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Hendrick and staff. It is my pleasure to introduce the following representatives of community and professional organizations. From the Pinellas County Council of PTAs, Reagan Miller. Representing the North Pinellas League of Women Voters, Dr. Marty Shapiro. And from the Pinellas Arts for a Complete Education Coalition, Sue Castleman. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I do want to mention a couple things before we go on to agenda item number 2. First, we are less than 2 weeks from starting school, and I think we're all feeling it, whether here as leaders and administrators or also at home as parents, as schedules come out and need to do that back to school shopping and everything else. We also on Monday morning had what's called the District Leadership Summit, and really that feels a great deal like the start of the new year for us. And it was a great morning. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Hendrick. It was a very inspirational. We have a lot to celebrate, and we have a lot of work to continue to do. I'm sure you'll share some of that in your remarks tonight, but it was an exceptional morning. The other item I want to mention is that tonight, at time certain at 6:30 p.m., is our first public hearing on the millage rates and the district's budget. So should we need to, this school board meeting will recess so that we can conduct that public meeting. And then upon completion of the hearing, we will return to complete the school board meeting. Wanted to make you aware of that. On with the agenda. Item number 2, amendments to the agenda. Mr. Hendrick, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are 2 amendments. Item 7.14, request adoption of the corporate resolution authorizing the issuance of a tax anticipation note, or TAN, not to exceed $150 million. This item was posted last week. We did update the attachments, combined them all into one, took off the draft, and added the preliminary official statement, which was not originally included, but it was all done last week for the board and public to see. And then just today, we updated item 7.20, request approval of the administrative appointment of the assistant principal at Sandy Lane Elementary School. We had a new principal appointed, and that created a vacancy in that spot, and we interviewed and finished those interviews this morning and are asking you to approve that so they can be in place for the start of school.
Congratulations on that. Thank you. Board members, any amendments to the agenda? No, as board chair, I find good cause to amend the agenda as suggested by Mr. Hendrick. May I have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda?
Make a motion. Second.
A motion from Mrs. Long and a second from Ms. Peters. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. We don't have any items on our special order agenda today. Public comments on agenda items. Mrs. Hauk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, Madam Chair, there's one speaker for agenda item.
Thank you. I'm going to share a statement around public comments because this will also apply to our public hearing that is at 6:30. Members of the public have 3 separate opportunities to address the board when we gather for a business meeting. The first is public comment on agenda items. The second is at public hearings like this evening, most of which are policies. And the last is after our meeting when speakers may address the general business of the district. At each opportunity for public input, board members are here to listen to you. This is not a time for interaction, but the board will take your comments into consideration before it votes on the agenda items. The board is committed to a standard of civility and decorum in conducting our meetings, which includes refraining from clapping or making audible noises during or after a speaker's comments. We appreciate you assisting us with maintaining a civil and constructive environment. Lastly, please note that this meeting and all public comments will be broadcast live on the internet, and the video will be publicly archived. Members of the public may always communicate with the board through our email address, board@pcsb.org, or by calling the board office at 727-588-6300. Thank you. Mrs. Hauk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our speaker tonight is Dr. Sonia Howman. She's speaking to item 8.1.
Good evening.
Hi, thank you, Superintendent, School Board, for allowing me to speak. I'm Sonia Howman, MD, mom of 4 public school graduates, retired physician. I want to thank you so much for organizing the phenomenal town hall. I want to thank you for working with our legislators to unfreeze the federal funding. You clearly work transparently and, more importantly, in the interests of the students, families, and educators. The town hall relieves so many anxieties from so many families that I know and love, so thank you. As well, you've done so much proactively to fund our schools, just thank you. Sadly, the freeze is not the only peril facing our public schools. The entire 2026 federal Department of Education budget will be cut by 15% if passed by Congress. While Title I funding remains largely intact, Title II is eliminated. This will end federal support for professional development and, of course, class size reduction. Title III, like...
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Dr. Howman. My name is David Kopersky. I'm the school board attorney and parliamentarian for the board. This is an opportunity for the public to speak to numbered agenda items.
Yes.
And so you signed up to speak to 8.1.
Yes.
Which is request approval of the mental health assistant allocation
exactly.
plan. So you're 1 minute into 3 and have not addressed that yet. So if you could please direct your comments to that. Thank you.
As far as 8.1 goes, the programs focused on our mental health access will be cut as well through Title IV. Additionally, if Florida proceeds with the proposed removal of even significant decrease to our property taxes, our district will lose all important millage funds, thus impacting our mental health one more time. I'm going to ask you, with the success of that town hall, please keep it up. Please let us know what is happening with special ed, what's happening with the mental health funding for our students here. You did such a great job, and it was so wonderful. I'd also ask you to make a resolution that Pinellas County School Board affirms the value of stable and adequate federal education funding for specifically our special ed, our students that need a little extra help with mental health. and prioritize our investment in public schools. I mean, this is a really winning proposition, as 80% of Americans are in agree with this, regardless of any kind of party. Again, thank you so much for working for our students. I believe that strong public schools make strong communities, especially for our most vulnerable students. And in this way, you're helping us all. So thank you.
Madam Chair, there are no other speakers for agenda items.
Thank you. We don't have any items on the unfinished business item. The consent agenda, may I have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion from Mrs. Kane and a second from Mrs. Long. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 8.1 on our non-consent agenda this evening, request approval of the 2025-26 Mental Health Assistance Allocation Plan. May I have a motion and second to approve this item?
Second.
Motion from Mrs. Kane and a second from Ms. Edmond. Mr. Hendrick, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week at our board workshop, we had a lengthy discussion on this mental health plan and what our district plans to do to spend the funds. We're grateful to have this categorical, to have a mental health plan, but as we discussed last week at the workshop, this is just a portion of the funding that we spend overall on mental health. So here to go over the plan and share a little bit more about this item that needs to be set up after board approval, hopefully, to the Department of Education by tomorrow, is our Executive Director of Student Services, Donna Sicilian.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Good evening, school board members and staff. I really appreciated the opportunity last week to delve into this plan in great detail with you. And I'm bringing it forward to you after our discussion and your contemplation of the items that were sent to ask you to approve the plan so that we can move forward with serving our students. Again, I want to thank you for your ongoing support. As Mr. Hendricks said, this is, $5 million of the $28 million that you all have supported and allocated for our students' mental health. I'll remind you of the one statistic I think I drove into your heads over and over last week, and that is 80% of youth that do receive mental health services receive those services in schools. So we are an education facility. We are not a mental health provider, but we have to make sure that our students are physically, emotionally, mentally healthy and ready to learn. There is a nexus there that we just cannot ignore, and you all have always consistently been so supportive of our youth and our family, and I thank you. And so I'm asking you to approve this year's plan. As Mr. Hendricks said, it's due to the State Department of Education. So with your approval, I will scurry back to my office and upload that plan, at which point the DOE will review it. They'll ask me any questions. We'll provide additional information, and we can receive this funding that we need to help these students and families. So thank you.
Mrs. Long? Thank you.
I just want to thank you and your team. You all have done a wonderful job, and it's not an easy job. When children are in crisis, it pulls and it tugs at your heart. And I've just met so many wonderful employees that you have, your social workers, your psychologists, your guidance counselors. Our children are in the best hands, and I thank you for that. And I feel this is an excellent plan.
Thank you. Thank you for your confidence. We do have a magnificent team in student services.
I would just add to those comments, Mrs. Sicilian, I appreciate over the years how you continue to read, explore, understand what's happening in our community and more broadly, and are able to keep the aperture open and understand the kinds of things that we need to focus on to keep our kids as healthy as we can. I also want to thank all the students and families and teachers and people who use and employ the See Something, Say Something app. It makes a difference. We have people monitoring that 24 hours a day and responding to any situations as needed. And then I do just want to raise up again the numbers you mentioned, that this mental health allocation plan is required for us to submit for the $5 million, which is in a categorical, so a specified budget item that comes from the state. But Pinellas County Schools chooses to spend $28 million on mental health. So when we talk about advocating for funding, that is one area we can look at what the mandates are versus what the funding is. But it's also a great deal to do with our choice in how we apply those dollars. But thank you for the work that you do. So important. Ms. Edmond, did you have something?
Outside of the comments that have already been shared, it's very important to share that you include student voice. So in making decisions and creating programs or finding and thinking about best practice, you are looking at what the needs are of the children as well as hearing from them. One of the things that were done in the past was including them in videos as they talk about mental health. So again, this speaks to not only your education and experience of your team, but the importance of hearing from the youth that we're trying to support. So thank you and your team again.
Absolutely.
With that, we have a motion and second on the floor to approve item 8.1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8.2, request approval of the 2026-27 calendar. Now, mind you, that's next school year. That is not this school year. So the 26-27 calendar and special observance days, as well as to modify the 25-26 instructional calendar regarding potential hurricane days. May I have a motion and second to approve this item? Second. Motion from Mrs. Kane and a second from Ms. Blacksburg. Mr. Hendrick, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, there are two items really with one vote before you, the 26-27 calendar, and then a slight modification, excuse me, to the 25-26 instructional calendar. I want to thank Mr. Vigu, our Chief of Human Resources, who's here to do this presentation, as well as members of the community that serve on that calendar committee. And this year, the board representative was Mrs. Kane. Thank you, Mrs. Kane, for your participation. Mr. Vigu?
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Mr. Hendrick, and staff. I'm here to present the recommendation for the 2026-27 instructional calendar and special observance days, and to make a recommendation to remove 2 potential hurricane makeup days from the 25-26 instructional calendar. Calendar committee representing parents, teachers, support staff, instructional staff, students in various community groups met this summer to develop the instructional calendar for the 26-27 school year. These committee members were provided with time to solicit feedback from their stakeholder groups and then share that input with the committee. The proposed calendar for 26-27 includes the following highlights: a start date for instructional staff on Monday, August 3rd, 2026, and a start date for students on Tuesday, August 11th, 2026. Reminder that students' first day cannot be any earlier than August 10th. 6 days of pre-planning for 10-month teachers. A Thanksgiving break from Saturday, November 21st through Sunday, November 29th. Winter break from Saturday, December 19th, 2026 through Sunday, January 3rd, 2027. All first semester exams to be administered prior to the winter break. 87 days of instruction in the first semester. 93 days of instruction in the second semester. A spring break from Saturday, March 13th through Sunday, March 21st. A school ending date for students on Thursday, May 27th, 2027, and Friday, May 28th, 2027 for the 10-month instructional staff. We identify on the calendar potential hurricane makeup days, which we know we're not going to need, right? A decision that will be made if and when we experience a storm. These dates are October 12th, 2026, January 4th, 2027, February 12th, 2027, February 15th, 2027, March 26th, 2027, and April 23rd, 2027. We've also heard from our families and students about utilizing days from the Thanksgiving break as potential makeup days. With families planning months in advance, there's been an outpouring of concern about not knowing if these days would be needed or not. Therefore, our calendar committee is also recommending removal of potential hurricane days, makeup days for the Thanksgiving break of 25-26. If needed, we will utilize an additional day in February that is designated as a non-student day. We're pleased to be able to bring this calendar with you here at the end of July as families and staff request the information earlier to make plans. Thank you for your consideration of this request.
Thank you, Mr. Vigu. Board members, is there any discussion? I know we reviewed it at the workshop last week. Okay, with that, we have a motion and second on the floor to approve item 8.2. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 9.1, items introduced by the superintendent. Mr. Hendrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the board for your advocacy in our community forum last Thursday evening. I also would like to thank our two congresswomen who sent representatives to speak on their behalf, as well as Mike McCurrick, the CEO of the Juvenile Welfare Board, who came and spoke. This room was full. We had an overflow room downstairs. We had individuals at a satellite location, and then thousands that participated online. As we all found out the next day, the funds were announced by the U.S. Department of Education that they would be released, and so we have integrated those funds into our 2025-26 budget to support students and teachers as originally designed. As we've learned throughout the process, we expect fewer federal funds next year and different priorities with those funds. And as such, we anticipate making adjustments to our original budgets this year when the time allows to account for the phasing out of these funds in future years. I was going to give a highlight of PTC graduation, but the walking billboard announcement, Ms. Edmond gave us that anyway for PTC. Thank you, Ms. Edmond, for your continued support of our workforce education. And so I'll move on to summer camps, which ended last week with thousands of students participating across the district. And this week, we're giving our plant operators a much-deserved few days to get schools ready for teachers who return to work on Friday, with other support personnel, some returning this Friday and then others next week, as we gear up for the new school year, which begins on Monday, August 11th, as was mentioned, less than 2 weeks away. Families can find a wide variety of information on back-to-school events on our webpage, including links to calendars, lunch information, and back-to-school events. This Thursday, our transportation department will send via phone, email, and text notification of student bus assignments for the new school year. This information may also be found in Focus, which successfully rolled over to the new school year earlier this week, and so you can find student schedules and a whole host of other information in Focus. Additionally, this week, final school start times and end times will be posted. The board has already approved those. Transportation has an opportunity to tweak some of those over the summer if they can make things more efficient, and any changes will be communicated by school principals to their school community. There's no big changes, but a few tweaks here and there. Next Tuesday, August 12th, we'll have our next Listen and Learn session taking place at 5:30 at Ridgecrest Elementary School. We invite the community to attend this informative event, which this time will focus on our Bridging the Gap plan. It will also cover district news and provide opportunities for students, staff, and community members to ask questions and interact with district leaders. We always have 3 board members join us, and this time it'll be Vice Chair Edmond, Ms. Blacksburg, and Mrs. Long as our board member attendees. And finally, as we get ready for school coming up, I want to acknowledge another superintendent standout from this summer, and that is Mr. Brett Iverson, the warehouse foreman of operational services. Mr. Iverson has been an employee with Pinellas County Schools for 5 years, and he was recently recognized for the great work he did helping trucks all summer long deliver supplies to summer camps. His coordination made a critical difference in ensuring a smooth and successful experience for students and staff. His professionalism, kindness, and thoughtful leadership were evident throughout the entire summer. Thank you, Mr. Iverson, for being so dependable and such a compassionate leader. We appreciate Mr. Iverson and all of our employees for the work they do each and every day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrick. Items introduced by the school board attorney, Mr. Kapersky.
I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Items introduced by the board. Board members? Are you saving it for the budget hearing, I imagine? In that case, I will just also comment on the community forum last week. The community turned out from all corners of our community, as well as every elected official. Every phone call that I made, again, bipartisan, picked up the phone and advocated for release of these funds. The people who came here, again, as Mr. Hendrick said, we had overflow room only, plus thousands of people engaging online. And, people showed up because they love their schools. And I think we need to see that and feel that and know that loud and clear. What I heard from people was these are our tax dollars, we value our schools, and we want them funded. Now, I will tell you, as Mr. Hendrick also said, the federal funding, I mean, this is just a shot across the bow, right? So we know that there will likely be a decrease in federal funding moving forward. Federal funding accounts for about 10% of our total budget. That's still a lot of money. It's about $150–160 million that comes from federal funding. I want to say thank you to the residents for overwhelmingly passing the referendum. It is the reason we can pay our teachers and staff a little bit more and hang on to them here in Pinellas County. And that is our local voters again saying we love our schools. State funding is really the biggest aspect of funding our schools. That's where the decisions are made. And so as the coming legislative season arrives, we are happy to provide forums, discussion on how we can make sure that we all understand and we can further advocate with our local delegation, or maybe it's the chairs of the different committees in Tallahassee, or however it is that we can make sure that the state senators, state legislators in Tallahassee who actually make those decisions about money in, about education, understand and hear you about loving your schools and wanting them funded. So I'd be happy, I'm sure our board would be happy to provide any information around budget and advocacy. I do want to thank the PTA and ACE and League of Women Voters who are here tonight and persistently advocate on our behalf, but I know there are also other organizations out there. So if you're part of one of them, whether it's Rotary or Kiwanis or any kind of community group, I know I and other board members would be very happy to come and talk with you and answer any of your questions about our schools, up to including funding. And again, if we had our way, what we would propose. But thank you for showing up, and thank you for showing us, our teachers, our administrators, our leaders, that you love your schools. We do too, and we will keep working hard and fighting for them. Any other board member comment for the board meeting? Okay. Review of board requests, Mrs. Woodford.
I did not note any board requests.
Thank you. With that, I will adjourn this meeting and we'll move to public comment. Mrs. Hauk, is there public comment this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, there's one speaker for public comment this evening.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Nicole St. Ledger.
Good evening. I just say I hope you all had a relaxing summer, but I know the district had fun challenges that they were facing and stressing over from both national and state governments. I've always tried to believe that the board and the district have the needs of children at the center of their mission. So I was extremely disappointed to hear that the district recently decided to remove books from school shelves without any complaints from parents or community members. I have stood here before you in the past talking about book removals because other members of our community felt they were inappropriate. I said to you at that time, and I'm going to say it again, no parent wants pornography in our schools, but we trust our teachers and our media specialists to understand what books are appropriate content and age appropriate for our children. They have been trained to understand this and to understand what meets the legal criteria as pornography. We trust that when a book has been chosen to be in a classroom or being in circulation in one of our libraries, that the teachers and media specialists have reviewed it and understand what is coming into our classrooms. Whenever that book was added to the rolls of books available. When there have been questions about books or other materials in the past, the district has used a very well thought out procedure to review whether the book meets the standards or criteria, and if they should stay or if they should be removed. The district's procedures have worked every time. When there have been members of the community asking for books to be removed here through formal complaints or just standing here at a board meeting, they say that they are sometimes our parents, sometimes grandparents, siblings, or just members of the community. knowing that my rights as a parent, choosing what my children would have access to read, was being taken away by people who are not even parents in our schools was frustrating. Knowing that you all are now making that decision, not the people who have been trained to, is even more frustrating. With the removal of this list of books, the district has abandoned their own procedures and guidelines. And I know, I've got a few more seconds, that there's the thought that kids can get these books somewhere else. But Pinellas County has book deserts. There are areas where children do not have access to books outside of their schools. There might be libraries nearby, but parents or other adults cannot get them there during library hours. There are members of this community that...
Thank you. Madam Chair, there are no other speakers.
Thank you. So we will reconvene at 6:30 for the public hearing on the budget. Thank you. Good evening. I call to order the first public hearing on the budget, Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. We're here tonight to review the proposed property tax rates and budget for the 2025-26 school year, hear comments from the public, and approve the proposed millage rates and budget. The order of business and actions taken tonight must follow specific directions set forth in the state statutes, and we ask for your cooperation as we go through this legally required format. There will be 2 opportunities for the public to speak this evening. First, you may comment on the proposed millage rates. Second, you may comment on the proposed budget. If you wish to speak, you must register separately for each part of the hearing with our staff member at the entrance to the boardroom. After tonight's hearing, the school board will continue to review the tentative budget. We may make changes or reduce millage rates prior to or during the final public hearing, which is scheduled for September 9th, 2025. We cannot raise the millage rate higher than the rate we tentatively set here tonight. On behalf of the school board and the superintendent, I thank each of you for taking the time to be here tonight and share your views with us. Agenda item number 2, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Motion from Mrs. Kane and a second from Mrs. Long. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 3 is introductory comments by the superintendent, and then from there we will move right into item number 4, which is overview of budget process and truth in millage or trim requirements by the Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Hendrick?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your engagement in this budget process and the interest that you've had in formulating the budget for the 25-26 fiscal year. We first discussed the budget publicly at a board workshop on June 24th. At the workshop, each component of the budget was discussed in detail. Since that time, there have been updates from Tallahassee to the Florida Education Finance Program, or FEFP formula, based on final tax roll valuations from across the state that netted a slight decrease in revenue for Pinellas County Schools. Additionally, you are aware of the conversations concerning federal funds in the last month. In addition to the announcement of the release of funds, updated allocations for Title I and IDEA, the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, were also released. These fluctuations are expected and normal throughout the summer. As is past practice, we'll continue to examine all parts of the budget as school begins in the next couple of weeks and student enrollment is finalized. We will have another workshop to discuss the budget on August 19th. I want to thank the board again for your participation with this process, and now I'll pass it to Mr. Jeppesen and his team for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrick. Tonight, we present the tentative budget and the millage rates for the 25-26 fiscal year. As required by Chapter 200 of the Florida statutes, the format of this evening's hearing and the accompanying truth in millage or trim advertisement, which was published by the Tampa Bay Times this past Sunday, are prescribed by law. Tonight's proposed millage rates include the voter-approved increases from this last November, which raised the local referendum from 1/2 mil to 1 full mil. This adjustment is now part of the district's overall funding plan for the coming year. Following the board's actions this evening, the Pinellas County Property Appraiser's Office will issue proposed tax notices. These notices will include the date and time of our second and final public hearing on the millage and budget, scheduled for Tuesday, September 9th, as Mrs. Hines previously mentioned. As always, this proposed budget is based on the estimates for the 24-25 fiscal year, as the prior year has not yet officially been closed. The final budget to be presented in September will reflect the actual results from the 24-25 fiscal year. At this time, I would like to invite Mrs. Samantha Chastain, Executive Director of Budget and Resource Allocation, to present the tentative millage and budget for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Jeppesen. Good evening, Mr. Hendrick, Madam Chair, board members, and staff. In this section of the presentation, we will review the tentative millages. Truth in millage, also referred to as TRIM, is a Florida law that requires school districts to advertise their proposed budget and millage rates annually. Compliance with TRIM is not optional. It is a statutory requirement for participation in the Florida Education Finance Program. The FEFP is designed to equitably fund public education by combining state revenue with local property tax contributions. The intent is to ensure that every student, regardless of where they live, has access to a high-quality education. Because Pinellas County has relatively high property values, we generate more in local revenue than many other school districts. And under the FEFP formula, this means we receive less state funding as our local tax base helps support the broader goal of equitable funding statewide. The measure used to calculate a district's local property tax is called a mill. A mill represents $1 of tax for every $1,000 of taxable property value. So if a homeowner has a taxable value of $400,000 and the district levies 1 mill, the school portion of their tax bill would be $400. The number of mills a district levies determines how much funding is generated from the local property taxes. The district's total proposed millage for the 25-26 fiscal year includes 4 key components. First is the general operating millage, which consists of 3 parts. The required local effort, or RLE, is set each year by the Florida Department of Education. This millage must be levied by the school board in order for the district to receive its share of FEFP state funding. The discretionary millage is also authorized by the state and part of the FEFP formula. This millage provides additional local support for operational needs. Districts are expected to levy the full amount as the state does not cover any shortfall. The local referendum millage was originally approved by voters in 2004 and has been renewed every 4 years since its inception. The most recent renewal passed with 68% voter approval on November 5th, 2024. And this vote gave authorization to the district to levy 1 mill annually from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. In addition to the general operating millage, the district also levies a 1.5 capital outlay millage. These funds are used for facility, construction, renovations, and capital improvements. For 25-26, the gross taxable property value across the county is estimated at $152.3 billion. This is a 1.1% increase from the prior year. Based on this value, 1 mill, which equals $1 per $1,000 of assessed value, generates $146.2 million at a 96% collection. As mentioned in the previous slide, this year's district's voter-approved local referendum increased by $0.5 mill to 1 mill and will generate an additional $73.9 million in operating revenue. This funding will support instructional and support staff, along with programs for reading, art, music, and technology. The total proposed millage for 25-26 is 6.293 mills, which will generate approximately $919.8 million in local revenue for both operations and capital projects. The rollback rate is the millage rate that would generate the same amount of revenue as last year if applied to the current tax roll after adjusting for new construction. This rate serves as a baseline for determining whether a proposed tax rate represents an increase in property taxes. If the proposed rate is higher than the rollback rate, it is considered a tax increase, even if the millage rate itself is lower than the prior year. The 25-26 proposed millage of 6.293 is higher than the rollback rate of 5.7424 mills and represents 9.59% increase in property tax revenue. It is important to point out that this increase is mostly associated with the increase in the voter-approved referendum rate from a $0.5 mill to 1 mill. For example, if the 25-26 local referendum was a $0.5 mill instead of the voter-approved 1 mill, the total millage would be 5.793 and equate to less than a 1% increase. Pinellas County's gross property tax value for the school district is approximately $152 billion, reflecting an increase of $1.6 billion, or 1.1% from last year. It's important to note that this figure represents the school district's tax base specifically, which may differ from the tax bases reported by individual municipalities or the county due to varying technical calculations. Total property tax revenue for 25-26 is projected at $919.8 million, up $77.8 million from the prior year. This reflects a 9% increase, primarily driven by the voter-approved increase in local referendum millage. Total operating revenue increases by $75.5 million, totaling to over $700 million for the first time, with the most significant change around the local referendum revenue, which nearly doubles. This is an increase of $73.9 million, following the increase from a $0.5 million to $1 million. Required local efforts show a marginal increase of just $515,000, reflecting a near flat rate and minimal property value growth. Discretionary revenue increases by $1.2 million, also holding a flat millage rate. Revenue from capital outlay millage increases by $2.3 million, with the rate unchanged at 1.5 mils. This growth is due solely to the modest rise in county's taxable property value. A key takeaway here is that the local voter action on the referendum is the primary driver of this year's revenue growth, not millage increases across the board. And these additional dollars will support instructional staff, academic programming, and student enrichment initiatives in line with the referendum commitments. Under the proposed millage rate, the owner of a home with an assessed value of $400,000 with consideration for the deduction of the $25,000 homestead exemption would pay $2,359.88 in school taxes. This averages out to $6.40 per day. Property taxes in Pinellas County are divided among more than 54 taxing authorities, including schools, municipalities, and fire districts, with the school district representing just one component of a homeowner's tax bill. The assessed taxable value of property in Pinellas County increased by 1.1% for the 25-26 fiscal year. This example is used to show the possible impact of tax values changes on homeowners' tax bills. But please note that this example does not include the benefit of our 3% Save Our Homes cap, which would limit the increase in assessed value for eligible homesteaded properties. At this time, I will turn the meeting back to the board chair to allow for public comment and for the motions necessary to adopt the millage rates.
Thank you, Ms. Chastain and Mr. Jefferson. Mrs. Houck, are there any speakers for agenda item 5?
Madam Chair, there are no speakers for this item.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second for approval of the tentative discretionary local effort millage?
I move that the board approve the levying of a tentative discretionary local effort millage of 0.748 mils as part of the total millage to be certified to the property appraiser in the Florida Department of Revenue.
I move that the board adopt a tentative millage rate of 6.2.
Excuse me, I'm
I think
sorry.
we'll-
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
we have
Ms.
to do-
Westwood.
Not yet. We'll start with Mrs. Kane. I have a motion to approve the levying of a tentative discretionary local effort millage of 0.748 mils. May I have a second for that?
Second.
A second from Ms. Blacksburg. So again, I'll repeat that motion. Well, actually, first let's have some or is there any board discussion on item 5.1, the approval of tentative discretionary local effort millage? No. With that, I have a motion and a second to approve the levying of a tentative discretionary local effort millage of 0.748 mils as part of the total millage to be certified to the property appraiser and Florida Department of Revenue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 5.2 on the agenda. May I have a motion and a second for adoption of the tentative total millage rates?
Move for approval.
Ms. Blacksburg will read.
I move that the board adopt a tentative millage rate of 6.293 mils to be set and certified to the property appraiser and to the Florida Department of Revenue. The millage rates are as follows. For required local effort, 3.045 mils. For discretionary local effort, 0.748 mils. For local referendum, 1 mil. For capital outlay, 1.5 mil. For a total tentative millage of 6.293 mils. This rate is 9.59% greater than the rolled back rate.
May I have a second? A motion from Ms. Blacksburg and a second from Ms. Peters. The motion is to adopt a tentative millage rate of let me first ask if there's any board discussion on this item. Any board discussion? The motion is second. I I have a motion and a second to adopt a tentative millage rate of 6.2930 mils to be set and certified to the property appraiser and to the Florida Department of Revenue. The millage rates are as follows. For required local effort, 3.045 mils. For discretionary local effort, 0.748 mils. For local referendum, 1.0 mils. For capital outlay, 1.5 mils. Total millage, 6.293 mils. This rate is 9.59% higher than the rolled back rate. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. For agenda item 6, the tentative 2025-26 budget, Ms. Chastain will present information on the budget prior to speakers' discussion and vote. Ms. Chastain?
This portion of the presentation covers the district's tentative budget for the 25-26 school year. The budget process is ongoing throughout the year, with updates presented at school board workshops. Spring brings more clarity on state funding as the legislative sessions conclude. Budget steering committee meetings are held to review key capital outlay priorities, and 2 public hearings are held in July and September to adopt the tentative and final budget and millage rates. Tonight is the first hearing, and the final hearing is scheduled for September 9th. There are several key parameters that guide the development of our annual budget. The instructional focus. The district's budget is intentionally aligned with our strategic priorities, with a strong emphasis on advancing student achievement. Significant investments are directed toward instructional initiatives that support early literacy, high-quality classroom instruction, and academic acceleration opportunities. In addition to prioritizing direct support for students and educators, the budget also ensures the infrastructure and resources needed to maintain safe and well-functioning schools. Financial stability. State law requires school districts to maintain a minimum 3% unassigned fund balance, and district policy requires a minimum fund balance of 5%. This budget is built to maintain compliance with both. And then strategic alignment. Budget decisions are aligned with the district's core curriculum goals and broader strategic directions, ensuring resources support academic achievement and innovation. When looking at the total proposed budget across all revenue sources, you'll see that the general fund represents the largest portion, accounting for approximately 63% of the total budget, or about $1.1 billion. The second largest portion is the capital outlay fund, proposed at roughly $395 million, which makes up about 22% of the total budget. Together, these 2 funds make up 85% of the district's total budget. The district's self-insured health fund and workers' compensation fund is projected at approximately $178 million, making it the 3rd largest fund in our overall budget. Altogether, the proposed budget for all funds in fiscal year 25-26 is approximately $1.8 billion. The new year brings several legislative changes to our school district. The base student allocation, or BSA, increased to $5,372.60. This is an increase of $41.62, or 0.78% over last year's BSA. Statewide, funding increased by $934 million, or $11.5 million to Pinellas, which includes funding related to family empowerment scholarships. Changes in the Florida retirement system contribution rate are projected to increase the district's expenditures by $2.5 million. And the teacher salary increase allocation increased $102 million statewide, or $41.1 million to Pinellas County Schools. Statewide, the appropriation for safe schools remains flat to the prior year. And a state-funded discretionary supplement of $859 million has been obligated to mitigate the impact of family empowerment scholarship on district's funding. This is a non-recurring funding source. The total operating fund resources are anticipated to be approximately $1.1 billion. Of that, about $730 million come from local sources, which includes the 1 mil referendum, and $250 million comes from state resources. The Florida Education Finance Program, or FEFP, is the general fund's primary funding source. The FEFP funding formula utilizes a combination of state and local resources to fund education. Looking at the operating budget graphically, you will note that the local sources represent about 66% of the total operating budget, and the state sources account for approximately 22%. The remaining 12% comes from transfers and beginning fund balance. The operating budget is used to fund the day-to-day operating expenditures of the district. It pays for salaries and benefits, supplies and materials, textbooks, student transportation, utilities, maintenance, and repairs. Viewing the distribution of our operating budget by object, there is little change from previous years. About 56% of our budget is spent on salaries and 24% on benefits. In total, 80% of our budget goes towards staffing. Capital outlay funds include revenue from both state and local sources. This fund reflects the revenue and expenditures for construction and renovation of school buildings and grounds. The majority of these funds are generated by the local capital improvement millage, which is set by law and limited to 1.5 mils. These funds may not be used for operating purposes. Rather, they may only be used for capital outlay purposes as advertised. Additional funds have been provided through Certificate of Participation, or COPS issuances. The lease purchase financing of capital improvement through the issuance of COPS is a technique frequently utilized by Florida school districts to finance school facilities. The district's proposed capital outlay budget is approximately $395 million. This includes $224 million allocated for the 25-26 proposed items related to capital projects, minor maintenance, technology, and transfers. $45 million is carried over from the prior year projects, and the ending fund balance includes outstanding obligations and non-project specific carryover funds from prior years. Florida school districts are required to share a portion of the discretionary capital millage revenue with eligible charters. In the current year, charter schools will receive approximately $8.9 million, which represents an increase of $3.4 million from the prior year. The special revenue budget is comprised of two major categories of federal funds: contracted programs and food and nutrition. The total contracted programs budget is currently $10.4 million. This budget starts the year off low and builds as the year goes on, as we do not recognize the revenue until it's available. The current allocations in this budget are related to a combination of items such as carryover balances from the prior year, which are utilized in the liquidation of closing grant awards. Also included are allocations for multi-year grants. The district is anticipating award allocations of $27.7 million for Title I, $28.5 million for Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA, and an estimated $9 million for Title II, Title III, Title IV, and adult education grants. The district is pleased to report that the U.S. Department of Education has released the remaining grants previously affected by the federal funding freeze. Food and nutrition is a self-sustaining fund as it receives no financial support from the operating fund. Federal reimbursements and local collections are the primary revenue source, and the proposed food and nutrition budget is approximately $54.4 million. The debt service fund is used to account for the payment of general long-term debt principal and interest. Allocated for 25-26 is $8.5 million, which represents the debt service for COPS, or Certificate of Participation, issued by the district in 2017 and 2021. The proposed self-insured workers' compensation and liability budget of $8 million accounts for the premium revenue and expenditures associated with the district's self-insured workers' compensation and liability insurance program. The self-insured health funds account for the district's premium revenue and claim expenditures with a budget of approximately $169 million. The proposed budget and all supporting documents are on file in the Office of Budget and Resource Allocation. This information can also be found online. And at this point, I will turn the meeting back to the board chair to allow for public comments and the motion necessary to adopt the proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chastain. May I have a motion to adopt the tentative budget for 2025-26?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. We'll ask for speakers first.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kapersky. Are there any public speakers to this item, Mrs. Hauk?
Madam Chair, there are no speakers for this item.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt the tentative budget for 2025-26?
I move that the board approve the tentative 25-26 budget as presented.
May I have a second? I have a motion and a second to, is there any board discussion? No. I have a motion and a second to adopt the tentative 2025-26 budget as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 6.2. May I have a motion for establishing the date, time, and place of the second public hearing?
I move that the second public hearing on the 2025-26 district budget be held on September 9th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the conference hall of the School Administration Building, 301 4th Street Southwest, Largo, Florida.
Motion by Mrs. Meyer. May I have a second? Second by Ms. Blacksburg. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, I have a motion and a second to establish the date, time, and place of the second public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 6.3. May I have a motion for authorizing the submittal of certification of the school taxable value?
I move that the board authorize the superintendent to advise the property appraiser of the millage rates, including the required rollback rates, approved at the first public hearing held on July 29th, 2025.
Thank you, Mrs. Peters. May I have a second? Second from Mrs. Long. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, I have a motion and second to authorize the submittal of the certification of the school taxable value. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 7, additional board actions. Board members, is there any additional board action? No. Item 8, other considerations and concluding comments. Board members? I thought I might share a few things on the budget, since we've been talking about it a good bit lately, and certainly do every year. You know, we shared the other evening, when it comes to our budget, there's money in and there's money out, right? And so the money comes in, we get told how the money's going to come in. That's not our decision, how much money we're going to get in. Certainly it was your decision to increase our referendum, and thank you for doing that. But it is, this process of budgeting is us allocating the dollars that we get and allocating them out. And certainly you can hear we all support the current draft of allocation for that. I think it's just important to note, it came up in the earlier meeting, and just to mention, we even have it in our legislative platform. Our draft legislative platform at this point talks about allocating funding streams, or allocating funding streams that accurately reflect costs associated with high-quality school safety and mental health services. So I just wanted to, mention to folks, we spend $28 million on mental health, but we get allocated $5 million from the state. We spend, in our budget, is $16.7 million on school safety. We're allocated $10 million. In our budget for transportation, $45 million for student transportation. We're allocated $14.2 million. So you can hear the pretty large deltas. The other evening we were talking about $9 million. This is much bigger numbers, of course. And then there's the FRS, the Florida Retirement System, where we, of course, are going to pay that and pay those increases that are mandated for us to pay, but not necessarily funded. And I think it's important to understand these things so that if we do want to advocate as a community for money in from the state, because our local community has done their part with approving those additional referendum dollars, then we can understand that. Another item that's on our draft legislative platform is to separate allocations for state scholarships and vouchers from the FEFP to ensure transparency. And I just want to share a couple numbers so that people understand. I think it can be a little confusing. How can the school board be saying our budget is low, or we don't have money, or we need additional money, when we also hear it was a record funding year, it was record education funding this year? So I just thought I would share some information on that. So it is true, the total state funding for all of K-12, including the empowerment scholarships, was up. It was up by $1.1 billion this year. But when you look at the deltas, what was up is the empowerment scholarships were up almost 1.3 billion, and public K-12 was down about 171 million. And so that's what nets the total record increase in education funding. I think it's important for people to understand. So, you know, when we first started school vouchers, they were for students with disabilities or with learning challenges to make sure that they got their needs met, and also for low-income students so that they wouldn't be stuck by zip code, that they wouldn't be stuck in a failing school. And so we provided them vouchers to be able to go out and go to a different school if their family felt that that was necessary. 2 years ago in 2023, that changed radically. It's now known as universal vouchers, and they're available to anyone of any income already in private school. So what that means, when you look at the state budget, all of this is available on FLDOE, the Florida Department of Education site. Go to finance, then go to FEFP calculations. These aren't my numbers. I just like to look at numbers. I have an MBA in finance. This is interesting to me, and it's important to me. So when you look at the funding for the Florida Empowerment Scholarship, for the couple years prior to it going universal, it was about $1 billion, about $1 billion in diverted tax revenue and tax credits to fund where the system had gotten. Now it's $4.7 billion, so it's gone up about $3.7 billion. And that's over that same time, over those same years, the K-12 budget, the money in on the K-12 side has gone up about $530 million. So $530 million for 2.5 million students in our schools versus $3.6 billion to students that are already in, primarily, there are some who go, but primarily, and we can show those numbers, already in an affording private school. So I think this is an important thing. I appreciate it being in our draft platform about separating the line items. If that's what we want to do with our tax dollars, let's do it, right? But let's also make sure that we're being transparent. Let's make sure that we're showing people that when we say record education funding, where that record education funding is actually going. So I just wanted to share those particular numbers with you. As far as our actual budget goes, as usual, Mr. Jefferson and Ms. Chastain, you do an excellent job. Thank you of answering all the questions and showing all the information. I've spoken to a couple county commissioners today, as well as thank you for the research on the city councils. It looks like across the county at this point, people are holding steady on those millage rates. So I think we came to that right action today as well. Sorry, I have a lot of pages with notes, and I just want to make sure I covered the different things. I'm very interested in the budget. I will talk to anybody about it anytime. It's very important. Public tax dollars should be accountable. They should have academic accountability associated with them, and they should certainly have transparent financials. You take public tax dollars, you take the test. You take public tax dollars, you open your books and show us how you spend those money. So if you have any questions about that from me and my thoughts, I'm happy to share those with you. Otherwise, thank you for being here this evening, and we'll adjourn this meeting.